In what was a Republican year, this Democrat not only won, but he did better than he did in 2008. We talked to Congressman Jim Himes about how he did it, what he's working on now, and what's next. What's next is a question many people want to ask Ned Lamont. Will we see him on the campaign trail again? He's also our guest today. All straight ahead this Sunday morning, December 12th, 2010.
This is Face the State with this house, Connecticut's most watched local political program.
Good morning and welcome to Face the State on this Sunday morning. The pundits had predicted that Connecticut Democrats would lose at least one congressional seat, but the Democrats managed to hold on to all five while the Republican wave swept the rest of the country. And with us here to talk about this is one of the men who was in danger of losing, they said, Congressman Jim Himes of the 4th District, and congratulations on your re-election.
Thank you, Dennis.
First of all, did you ever think you were going to lose?
Well, you know, I'll tell you, it's like they say, there's two ways to run an election. One is unopposed and the other one is scared. So, yeah, look, the district I represent is an independent swing district, and so there will not come a point when it will be safe for me. And, you know, it wasn't safe for my predecessor. So, and, you know, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It keeps us sharp, keeps us thinking, keeps us independent.
So it's never going to be an easy race for you in that district.
That's right.
All right. How did you pull it off? What was the key to victory and padding your vote total from 2008?
Well, I think, I think sometimes people make the mistakes of thinking that it's all about the campaign. The campaign's important, but I think the 2 years of service prior to that are particularly important. And look, it's an independent district. People in the 4th District of Connecticut want somebody who is thinking independently, who's doing what they think is right, not necessarily voting with their party. And I think I did that under some very difficult circumstances. I mean, the politics of the last 2 years were as tough as they get. And there were moments when I broke with my party and was happy to do so and was very clear about when I was doing so. And then when I didn't break with my party, I explained to people why, or, you know, I just spent a lot of time with my constituents, thought about what I wanted to do, and the results were the results.
President Obama came in the Sunday before the election. You think that helped tip the balance?
You know, there's no question that having President Obama in Bridgeport definitely added some energy in Bridgeport. No question about that. And it was just, I'll tell you, setting aside the politics, to see the thousands of people who showed up, who I think never imagined that they might see the President of the United States, to be in the presence of the President of the United States was really an amazing thing. But, you know, I picked up 4 suburban towns that I didn't pick up in the last go-around, where I suspect the president is a little less popular than he is in Bridgeport. So pretty solid all around.
You are now have to walk a fine line with these Bush tax cut that President Obama would like to see continued for a while, because you have some wealthy towns in your district and you also have one of the poorest cities in your district. Where do you stand right now on these tax cuts?
Well, Dennis, it's not about poor or rich in this instance. That's a whole other topic. I have been consistent for a long time and was throughout the campaign that, unlike most Democrats, I actually supported a temporary extension of the high-end tax cuts. And that was not because of rich or poor. It was because the economists tell us that that is the right thing to do from the standpoint of generating jobs and economic activity. There's an awful lot of free cash flow, a lot of income that goes through the businesses that file under those returns. Bottom line is that when we're in a very hesitant recovery, and right now we are in a, at best, hesitant recovery, you don't raise taxes. Now, we need to eventually, at some point, we're going to wake up to the fact that we don't bring in enough revenue even to service much reduced expenditures. That's why I always supported a temporary reduction in those things. And that, of course, the president compromised on that with this latest tax compromise, and there will be a 2-year extension of those upper income tax cuts. But in exchange for that, there's some really important things, like an extension of unemployment insurance, like a payroll tax holiday, like an extension of the earned income tax credit, other things that will be very, very stimulative of the economy.
So if nothing is done, everybody's taxes go up January 1st. Is that how I understand it?
If nothing is done, everybody's taxes go up on January 1st, which is why this compromise or something like it needs to get done before January 1st.
And what's your role in all this? What do you think will be done in the next couple of weeks?
Well, we've seen what's happened. Most of the Democratic caucus in the House is not pleased with this compromise. And in fact, in a caucus meeting that I attended 2 days ago, the caucus voted, not unanimously and not with my vote, to forbid this from coming to the floor. Now, I think the idea there was that you would strengthen the Speaker's hand in trying to get concessions. And look, if we can get a better deal, I'm all for it. The piece of this that really rankles me is the treatment of the estate tax. This is far more expansive than anything we've seen in a long time in this country.
Too generous. generous, you've called it.
Too generous, too generous. A $5 million per person exemption and anything over $5 million taxed at 35%. That's far more generous to estates than anything we've ever seen. That's just, you know, at the end of the day, and when this economy is thriving again, we face the need to act very quickly on the fiscal situation. And we're going to have to take very, very severe cuts, and we're going to have to be honest with each other about where the revenue comes from. Nobody's going to like any of that discussion, but one thing I'm pretty confident of is that if you're going to tax something, and you are going to tax something, you got choices. You can tax income, that's the fruit of people's labor. You can tax the returns on investment, capital gains, and that impacts what people are willing to invest. Or you can tax something like the transmission of wealth from one generation to the other. Of those three things, it's the transmission of wealth from one generation to the next that is least damaging. Taxing that is least damaging to growth and innovation in our economy.
Is that a deal breaker for you if the Republicans insist that the estate tax be repealed?
Well, look, I've said on the record that I would vote for this compromise as it exists, and I think I'm in this relatively small minority of Democrats in saying that. But look, this is a compromise.
Because of the better good?
Well, because for a couple of reasons. One, we shouldn't be playing brinksmanship with the economy. And if we don't get this done, economically, people are going to see their tax rates rise, and that cannot happen at this moment in this economic recovery. Politically, too, and this is what I've sort of tried to explain to some of my fellow Democrats, if we don't do the deal that the president has negotiated now, guess what? We wake up in the second week of January, from a partisan standpoint, we've got a Republican Congress and a less Democratic Senate. And so the notion that this is going to get renegotiated in January and that we're going to like it more, you got to explain that to me, because it's not going to happen.
You've been criticized by some folks. Hugh Bailey of the Connecticut Post wrote that you were playing the Republicans' game. Other folks are writing in defense of you, saying a person who makes $250,000 in Darien is not necessarily wealthy and shouldn't be labeled as such. Is that accurate?
Well, look, as I said before, the issue on these tax cuts is not who's rich and who's poor. The question is, what can we do right now to make sure that the economy continues to recover? And raising taxes on those returns that are in excess of $250,000 hurts, not helps recovery. Now, it helps the fiscal situation, but we're not yet in the world where we should be taking tough measures to address the fiscal situation. Look, the Simpson-Bowles Commission, the report that came out 2 weeks ago, nobody liked any of that, but even they recognize that you don't take these measures now. You wait till late in 2011 or 2012. Now, to your question, though, every time I hear in Washington some hard number, 100,000 in income, 200,000 in income, whatever that number is, my ears perk up. And that's because I represent a district where people pay a lot more for electricity, for education, for food, for gasoline. $100,000 or $80,000 or $400,000 in Fairfield County, Connecticut goes a lot less down the road than it does in Nebraska or New Mexico or somewhere. So I'm always attuned to the notion that a dollar in a very high cost district is very different than a dollar in a lower cost district.
You voted for the DREAM Act. The House did. Now it goes to the Senate. What do you think the prospects of that passing?
Well, who knows? I'm not a good predictor of the United States Senate, and I never have been. But this is something that I think is just important to who we are as a country. The DREAM Act says, and there's a lot of misinformation out there about it, the DREAM Act says that if you were a child and you were brought into this country by your parents coming in illegally, and think about that. These are kids who arrived when they were 2 or 3 years old. They went to high school, they went to their senior prom, they played on the football team. At age 18 or 19, they try to get financial aid and they discover that they're not documented, right? But they're as American as you and as you and I. And, all of a sudden the government is threatening deportation. We're going to send you to the Ukraine or to Guatemala, countries that perhaps they know nothing about and don't speak the language. The DREAM Act says that in that instance, you can, if you are willing to serve for 2 years in our military or get a degree from a college, a university, that you can get in line. And it's a long line. It's 10 years to get a green card so that your status can be normalized. These are kids who, by definition, under the law, would either service in the military or get educated and add to our economy. It's the right thing to do.
More with Congressman Jim Himes in just a moment. We're going to take a